Hello, everyone. Welcome to this webinar called Step into Excellence. And I'm actually very excited to present this particular webinar to you. I think there's some really key information here which will certainly make a difference in my life. And I think I know when you apply it will make an actual difference in yours as well, and a difference for the better. So this webinar will go for about half an hour or so, and my name is Jacqui, and I'll be presenting this to you. I've been using NLP now and techniques, principles of NLP and so on, for over 20 years in my life, and it's made a difference in every area where I have applied it. And I continue to learn and use it again and again in many new and different contexts, and I hope you will too. So this webinar is not an NLP training per se, but what it is will give you a little bit of information that you can use to learn about NLP, and then to some tools and things that you can apply almost immediately in your life. So we're talking about excellence, and in this context, it is about state management and being able to manage our emotions and our moods and our feelings and how we feel at any particular time. Now, leading starts with leading yourself. So there's a lot of management theory and models out there about what leadership is, who can be a leader, who is a leader, characteristics of leaders. I mean, if you Google it, you will come out with hundreds of thousands of hits on leadership. Fundamental to that, and I think where NLP makes a real big difference, is in sorting through all that information and coming to what is the essence, what are the key things, what are the foundation pieces. And one of the key pieces around leadership starts with the self, and really being able to manage your own self and your own thoughts and feelings in any particular context before really you can manage and lead other people. So there are there's an emotional intelligence model, for example, developed by Daniel Goleman, and in that he talks quite a lot about one of the aspects of emotional intelligence is not only to become aware of and notice and observe other people's feelings and where they're at, but also to be able to manage your own, to be able, in this instance, to identify your own feelings. What am I feeling in this particular situation? And then to be able to manage that effectively so that you can respond in a particular context or when something happens rather than react. So you'll see on this slide, there's some definitions of what a state is, a mood or emotion. State management, being able to manage and choose the particular feelings that you want to have in a particular situation or event, be able to change what you do feel to make it more resourceful and more empowering if you need to, and to be able to do that with have a lot of flexibility so you can change it at will, and that also really enabling you to have a lot more choice in how you respond to particular things. So the steps in state management are really about having awareness, being able to choose differently if you want to, and also then taking action. Very likely when you are in a negative, when you're feeling bad, or you're feeling irritated, for example, or angry, frustrated, any of those feelings, the likelihood of you or me or anyone really being able to actually achieve a win-win outcome, be able to respond effectively, really goes down. And what we want to be able to do is choose feelings which will enable us to be more resourceful and more responsive. For example, being confident, accepting, feeling inspirational, and maybe even amusement and humour in some situations really allows you to access a lot more internal resources and be in a more resourceful place where you will be able to respond much more effectively, in which case very likely you'll be able to achieve your outcome when you're able to choose how you feel in particular situations. There is an NLP model, which is this one. We've talked about it before, and I think it's a real key one to really get into your body. And this NLP model is a cybernetic loop, and it's based on a deep understanding that really the mind and the body are one and very connected. So what this model shows is your thinking influences how you feel, which influences your physiology, your body, how you carry your body, your breathing, and so on, which again, in a very cyclical way, influences how you think. So all these three areas are they're very interrelated, and all of that combined together to produce really how you behave in the external world, and that all of that really impacts how you respond, what actions you take, what language you use, and so on when you're responding. So all of these things, really your state is made up of your thinking and your physiology. It's a loop, and when you change one, it changes the others. So in this context, for example, if you're feeling negative, or you're feeling down, depressed, sad, angry, very likely you'll be holding your body in a way which is slumped over. Your breathing might be lower down, and this will influence how you think and how you feel, and it creates a loop. So the question then is, how can we use this information to make some changes in our life? How can we move from a state of maybe feeling like this occasionally? I don't know how often you feel like that, but in some work situations it can be very highly stressed, and there might be anxiety, a feeling of overwhelm there. What that really leads to, that sort of state, really can lead to a behaviour where you're not not very interested in what's going on. You lose interest in work, not very productive. People don't want to be around you, possibly, or you don't want to be around people. You might have problems sleeping and so on. So these are sort of excessive stress at work. So this is just an example, but what we want to be able to do is move easily from something like that, perhaps to something like this, where you're nice and relaxed, or even this, which is another choice of sort of being able to be in a position where you're more responsive to things that are going on around you. And wouldn't we all like to feel like that? Often people talk about things like wanting to be happy, more happy in their life. They talk about happiness, being in a flow, where things just happen easily and effortlessly. And how do we create those states? Particularly happiness, for example. I don't know, you might think of happiness for a moment and what that means for you, if you just take a few seconds or so to remember a time when you were really happy, when you felt happiness, and it might be a childhood memory. And occasionally, sometimes it might be a bit challenging or not to remember a time when you were happy. And if that's the case, I would suggest that you act as if, make it up, pretend. If you were happy, what would that look and feel like for you? What would you actually be feeling? And for different people, that state of happiness is made up of different things. It could be a sense of freedom, or feeling really deeply connected, maybe a lot of love and comfort there. And maybe, feeling happy for no reason at all, just for the sake of feeling happy. So who is a psychologist and a key positive psychology movement, he talks about happiness and people finding that inside of themselves, and something, and also from an external point of view as well. But happiness is something that you can create right now, and it's just simply by remembering it and anchoring that in. And that's something we'll be talking about a little bit later, how you actually can capture that those states and that feeling of happiness, for example, and create that at will whenever you feel you want to, until it becomes a habit, really, of everyday life, one of your normal habits. So happiness is about increasing positive emotions. Seligman talks about understanding and using what your strengths and abilities. It's a very positive type of psychology where you focus on developing strengths, identifying and developing what your strengths are, and using those in all areas of your life. Increasing that first one, increasing positive emotions, is something you can practice, and certainly by learning about anchoring, which we'll be talking about a little bit later, you'll be able to access and do that whenever you want. Happy people tend to surround themselves with happy people, have a real optimistic outlook on life, develop resilience, as we said, identify and live their strengths. They're aware of their moods and choose positive emotions. So that's one of the key areas that Daniel Goleman talks about, where in emotional intelligence and people with high levels of emotional intelligence, they know, they recognize, they have a lot of self-awareness. They pay attention to what's going on the inside and notice how they're feeling and recognize that. And when they're feeling things which are less than positive, they choose positive emotions. They choose to feel happy or to look on the bright side, or to focus on the positive things that are happening in their life. So they practice a lot of gratitude, and that's really focusing on what you do have. And there's a saying that goes, energy goes where the attention flows, or is it attention flows where the energy goes? In summary, I think it is what you focus on is what you get. So if you practice gratitude and looking at all reminding yourself of all the good that's going on in your life, you're very likely to increase that. Going with the flow is a really important thing that happy people tend to do. And going with the flow really is about learning to be in the moment and just being fully present with whatever is going on. So when you're washing the dishes, that's all you're doing is washing the dishes. And when you're playing with the children, then you're fully present, focused with your mind, body, heart, and spirit just on being with the children. And then same when you're at work, you're just really fully at work and being present and available for people who are around you. Flow is a wondrous state to be in. You find a lot of top athletes are really, when they're performing at their best, they describe themselves as being in a flow. Things just happen and they have sort of like this expanded awareness of what's going on around them. So there might be things in your life that where you feel fully present, where you know you're engaged in an activity, and 2 hours later you think, oh, where did that time go? It was so beautiful. Often, sometimes well, for me, when I'm bushwalking, or when I used to do a lot of bushwalking in New South Wales and in the Blue Mountains, and I remember some of those, the scenery there is just amazing, and the connection to nature. And I could, be just looking at a magnificent view for an hour, and it would go like it was 2 seconds, and I'd go, where would the time go? And that's, for me, what being in a flow is like. And you can have that too, and there are things in your life that might create that for you, and we really encourage and support you to practice a lot more of those things that really enable you to be in a flow. So from an NLP point of view, creating states of flow and happiness, or any other type of state or emotion that you feel would be really resourceful and beneficial for you, you can learn to do that in NLP by creating anchors. There's an exercise which we'll be doing a little bit later on called Circle of Excellence, and that will also help you create positive feelings when you want. And there are many other patterns in NLP that I actually teach in the practitioner and master practitioner courses that I run, and they can also give you or help you really manage your state, create states that you want to have in your life. So anchoring is the process of learning to hold on to states that are really important for you and that are crucial for your success. So what it involves really is associating an internal feeling, an internal state to something on the outside, like a trigger or something like that, that you might use to quickly access that state again if you want. So it's a way of learning to choose your emotional states when you want them. So you might find that in particular circumstances where you really want to be resourceful and be in control of your emotions and be able to replace any unwanted feelings and thoughts with things that are really empowering for you, might be, for example, situations when you might be doing a presentation, for example. This could be a sales presentation, it could be a talk. It could be in situations where you're in maybe a conflict situation and you're on the receiving end of some, of being confronted or some aggression or something like that, where you think, okay, I really need to keep my cool here. And how do you learn to manage to actually do that? I mean, anchoring will help with that. There might be, at work, there might be some situations where you might be involved in a redundancy or something, or which can be very uncomfortable, and you really want to be in a very present, resourceful state if you're a manager or a leader who is actually working with somebody else, or even if you're on the receiving end, that type of situation is very confronting as well. When you're giving feedback, even receiving feedback, the more open you are to feedback from other people, the more chances you have of learning and growing. And sometimes in situations of feedback, I know I used to, very early on in my career, I used to, when someone give me feedback, I'd feel myself shutting down because, I felt threatened by that. I felt like maybe I wasn't good enough, so I really didn't want to hear it, and there was a bit of denial going on until I learnt about how important it is to really open up and allow the feedback in, because that's the only way really that you can really participate in the world even, and learn and grow and change and develop. And if I wasn't allowing feedback in, when you don't allow feedback in, it stifles you. It's very difficult to grow and change and develop. So there's a lot of situations where it really is valuable to be able to manage how you're feeling and be able to be responsive in those situations. When there's a lot of change going on and so on. So being able to so what is anchoring? So we'll talk a little bit more about anchoring, and it's really curious. The word anchoring, defining the whole process as anchoring, really relates to, for example, this is a way to understand it, like a ship or a boat downs the anchor, and that's to keep it stationary in one place so it doesn't really float away. It's to keep it secure in that place. And similarly with our feelings, when we can choose where we want to keep ourselves from avoid drifting away into feelings of tension, worry and stresses, and the same thing. So it's a very similar process for us, from a personal point of view. So anchoring involves associating two experiences, one a desired emotional state, and sometimes with an external trigger, like it could be a touch, could be a feeling, it could be a touch, a sound, a thought, a word. All of these things act really as anchors. I'll have a quick look at a definition of what an anchor really is: a trigger, a stimulus that evokes a specific response, an external event which causes an internal reaction. So if you think about, you probably know about Pavlov's experiments with the dog in 1904. He conducted some experiments where he had dogs living in a cage, and he would feed the dogs meat, and at the same time he would ring a bell and the dogs salivated when they would salivate when they smelt the meat, and so every time he fed them, he'd ring the bell, and they would salivate. And then eventually, over time, through a conditioned response, meaning he repeated it again and again, eventually the dogs learnt that as soon as the bell rang, they would salivate, meaning for them, they had an internal meaning that the bell meant food and meant time to, I guess, salivate and prepare their digestive system for the food. So then the bell, which was the trigger, created that response, which was the salivation. When you think about it, we have so many triggers going on in our life, so many anchors, which are natural anchors in our life. Everything we do, for example, almost everything we do is a response to some sort of anchor. So, for example, a special look from a loved one might make you feel nice and gooey on the inside, and might make you feel like, yeah, you can't wait to spend some time together. Or even if you remember, if your mum or dad or someone close to you called your name in a particular way, you think, I think I'm in trouble. They'll say, Jacqueline, and I think, oh my God, something's happening. So that again, that's an anchor, and that triggers the response of anxiety, or like, oh my gosh, something's happening. It could be you're walking through a food hall and the smell of food reminds you. You may not have thought that you're hungry, but as soon as you smell some food, you think, oh, I think that that makes you feel a little bit hungry. And so that reminds you. It could be, the smell of your mum's cooking, or freshly baked croissants or something like that. All of these things are anchors that trigger a particular emotional response in you. On this slide, there's some particular anchors there that people sometimes might be familiar with. Music is another one as well. You hear a particular, if in your teens or early on, you heard a particular song when you were at a dance or an event, and it was a very, it could have been a romantic song, and every time you hear that song from then on, might actually remind you of that original event that you. Or you could be driving along and you hear a song and you think, oh, that reminds me of my first boyfriend, or something like that. Traffic lights, signals are anchors as well. When you see red, it means stop. When you see green, it means go. I've got the Toyota symbol there, and that's really interesting as well. But when I see that, automatically in my mind, I say, oh, what a feeling, Toyota. So all of these are anchors that marketing strategists use quite successfully to hook people into their product and get them really attached to their products, so they use that for sales. The haka, if you see the All Blacks there performing the haka just before a game, and again, that's a trigger, that's a team trigger, and that creates an amazing state, empowering state, a powerful warrior state for the All Blacks just before they go out and play. And I think it does that not only for them, but also for the audience watching them. I know that when they do that and I'm watching, I feel on the inside, I feel a certain strength, a certain wow, just a bit of awesome feeling that goes on for me as well. So all of these are anchors, and they all occur naturally. And the thing is, a lot of them occur unconsciously. So the thing is to become aware of these in a conscious way, particularly if there's behaviour that you're doing that you think, you know what, I don't like how I take on board feedback. How can I change that? And if you examine that process and you identify the anchors, then you can actually change those anchors, or change the response to those anchors, so that you don't feel that way. You can change and choose a different emotional response or state, so that you feel much more empowered, and you can take on the feedback, for example, in that particular case, in a much better way. So making your anchors Conscious is a real critical part of it. We can change anchors. You can, with NLP techniques, you can create anchors, change anchors, collapse anchors that are negative, that are unresourceful for you. So then, so you might produce calmness when you want and need it, produce confidence in a particular situation. For example, you want to go into a job interview and you walk into the interview and there's a person there that reminds you of your old boss who you didn't have a good relationship with. And then all of a sudden the interview falls in a heap because that person reminds you of that old state that you had, which was very unresourceful. Whereas with this and with NLP, with learning about anchoring, you can actually identify that sort of thing, change it, even in the moment. As soon as you recognize it, you can use your resource anchor, which we'll talk about setting in a moment, and you can use that to create a confident, resourceful, calm state so that you can handle that interview or that presentation in the way that is most empowering for you, helping you achieve your outcomes and giving you a lot more choice in how you actually respond. So how do you create anchors? So there's lots of different anchors. An anchor can be a touch, it can be a sound, it can be an image, it can be a smell or an odor, it can be a taste of something. All of these are anchors. And as we said, they can be positive or negative. Understanding how an anchor is created is really important. So, for example, if you think about it, is there some sort of feeling that you'd like to have more of now? And if you have a look at it, maybe it's confidence or peace. And what you would do is you would choose what sort of state you'd like to have, decide where on your body you'd like to play. The easiest one to set is the touch anchor, which is this one here that we're talking about. And so you choose a place on your body that's sort of unique and specific, and it might be you might touch your thumb and your little finger together, or it might be just inside your elbow or on your wrist. And so you decide where you want to place that anchor. Then you recall a time where you had that feeling, when you, let's say it's confidence. So just remember a time when you felt confident. And just go back into that time and experience it in an associated way, where you're in the shoes, where you're actually in the shoes of someone or yourself when you were confident and looking out through your own eyes. And when you feel really, really confident and you really intensify that state. So sometimes it might be a challenge or not to actually recall a time, and in which case it's quite okay to act as if. So pretend if you were confident, what would you look like? What would you feel? What would you see? What would you hear? And the unconscious mind doesn't differentiate between what's the real or the imagined. It's the same for your unconscious mind. So acting as if is just as valid as doing it, because it's a little bit like fake it till you make it. And if you train your system and your body and your neurology to feel strong, then it will become strong. There's no other way about it, because that's how our body and our neurology works. So recall a time when you experience that state, intensify the feelings of that state till it's about 12 out of 10. So really go all out and make that state feel as strong as you can. Stand as if you're confident, look out through the eyes of confidence. And then at the peak intensity of that state, that's when you would apply that touch to, let's say it's your thumb and your finger and your little finger. You would touch those together, and that's called setting the anchor. And then you would break state after that. So you touch, and then you let it go just as the feeling starts to fade away. You let that touch go, and then you would break state. And that's just to disconnect from everything. You might say, change your thinking, change how you're standing or how you're sitting, how you're breathing, just a little bit of change. And then you would test it again by touching. And if it didn't And what you do, what happens when you test it again by touching, is that really should recall that state quite intensely. If it doesn't, you just practice and repeat it a few times, and you basically are conditioning and setting that anchor. And then after, whenever you need to, you could touch that anchor or trigger it via that anchor, and you should be recalling that state of confidence whenever or however you really want to need it. So that's really an explanation of how anchors are set, and really, in effect, learning to be resourceful. This is really based on an NLP presupposition that you're in charge of. You really are. I am. We all are in charge of our own mind and the results that we produce. And these sort of exercises develop that more and more. So for the next 5 minutes or so, what I'd like you to do, or what we'll do, is an exercise, and this is about creating a circle of excellence for yourself. And this is a different type of anchor. This is sort of a step into anchor, where you actually move into a space and step into what we're calling a circle of excellence. And this is actually quite a beautiful exercise to do. So if you wouldn't mind just getting into sort of a comfortable position, and if you like, you can close your eyes, whatever is easy for you to do now. And as you do, think about what states or feelings, what emotions represent excellence for you. So what does excellence feel like for you? It could be something around maybe determined or focusing. Might be some creativity in there, or some confidence, some strength or clarity. So just think about what states you'd like to have when you're feeling excellent, what that feels like. Just go ahead and just feel those states. And then with your eyes closed for a moment or so, just imagine an invisible circle on the floor in front of you. And that circle could be maybe 1 meter in diameter. And as you do, when you're ready, I'd like you to just, in your mind, go ahead and step inside that circle. Step inside and remember a time now when you really, inside that circle, experience those feelings of excellence. That's right. See what you see when you look out through the eyes of excellence. Hear what you hear, the sounds, the words, the feelings. And when it's really at a peak, make it even more powerful. Adjust those pitches, make them maybe brighter or closer, whatever it is that makes that feeling stronger for you. And again, if there are no images, that's okay too. Just act as if. Images, sounds, feelings, whatever they are, make those really strong and intense for you. And adjust those, just like you'd adjust a TV set. And then as you do, say something really powerful to yourself. Say something, could be yes. Use a word, something really powerful, a word or a sound, and say, yes, I can. And make a gesture. As you're feeling all these feelings and saying yes, make a gesture to yourself that goes along with this state. It could be a fist, it could be a punch, whatever makes that experience feel really strong for you, deeper, really deeper and more powerful again. And then on the count of 3, I'm going to ask you to step outside the circle and leave that state inside your circle. So 1, 2, 3, step out of that circle and leave that state in the circle. And on the count of 3, I'm going to ask you to step back in really quickly. And this time, imagine a color there. It could be any color that you love or that you enjoy or that you like. Imagine any color there. Could be red for passion, blue, clarity, whatever that is for you. So 1, 2, 3, step back into that state of excellence and see that color there all around you. Could be smelling, feeling, tasting that color, hearing whatever that color is for you there is absolutely perfect for you. Let yourself see and feel the color, absorb all those states of excellence, all those feelings. Make that sound, that word, whatever that word is for you, say that word and that gesture, make that movement again. Stand the way you stand when you're feeling excellent. Intensify. That's it. Now step out of your circle, leaving it all there. Step back out. Now, the beautiful thing about this is whenever you want a resource state, you can think about your circle, imagine it in front of you, and just simply step into all those emotions and resources. And you can see it just like a spotlight that follows you around, that just floods you. You can add any state you like to this circle anytime. You should be feeling really different right now, which is really cool. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to ask you on the count of 3 again to step in. Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Step into that color. Yes, that's it. Feel all those feelings just flooding through you. Make those movements and those gestures that are really supportive and empowering for you and say those words. See that color there. That's it. And then step out. Excellent. That's right. Now, one more time now, we're going to step in. 1, 2, 3, step back into those feelings, into that color, into those sounds and those emotions. See those images just flowing through you. Feel all that excellence, that brilliance, which is only you. And you can feel all of that flowing in you, through you, around you, in this circle of excellence, which is your circle. One more time now, we're going to step back out. And then on the count of 3, you step back in again and you go 1, 2, 3 and step back into that circle. That's it. And you just enjoy that feeling of excellence, which is your circle of excellence. Okay. Excellent. Okay, now you can step back out of that. And remember that this circle is yours. I created my own circle of excellence quite a while ago, and I use it quite consistently, particularly when I'm presenting and in front of people. I just see that circle there at the front of the training room or the presentation, wherever I'm presenting. And then when I step into that circle of excellence for me, which has been the best facilitator that I can possibly be, or presenter or speaker in that moment, to really help and empower others to be the change that they want to be in the world and to realise all their potential and everything for them. And that's part of my circle of excellence that I step into. So you can do this. You can place your circle wherever you want. It could be in your office, around your chair. It could be when you present. It could be when you have a difficult conversation to have with someone. It could be whenever you want. And this is the beautiful, amazing thing about having this sort of technology within your grasp, is to be able to use it whenever, however you want, so that you can be the best person you can be in any and every situation. You can always add more things into your circle. Whatever you want, it's all within your control and your ability. And I wish you the joy of that. It certainly brought me a lot of joy. Anyway, I think On that note, this is the last slide that I wanted to share with you, an exercise for you to take away today. Please play with your circle, enjoy it, and good luck with that. So my contact details are there if you want to email me. My website details are there as well if you have any questions. More than happy to answer any of those. There's a lot of information on my site about various things, and also about the programs and courses that I offer. And those programs and courses are available to you. And if you mention this webinar, there'll be a discount for you as well. So please let me know which webinar you've listened to, and I'd love to see you at my certification program. And good luck to you. I hope everything goes well. Enjoy what you've learned today. Have fun. Oh, P.S. Share it with others too. I think the more, the better.